Eileen Apperson is a writing instructor in the English department, and she also does other things, which I will let her talk about. And today she is going to talk about, oh my gosh, I'm totally like losing it here, using video, doing presentations as an alternative assignment. So I will hand it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. So let me go ahead and share. And I'm sorry. Lori trapped me last semester. I say that in the kindest way possible, to do a presentation on a few different best practices. And so I'm reusing that slideshow. I'm just starting it in another location in the presentation. So anyway, forgive me for not putting this all together on something that was just for this presentation, but it's the same kind of information. So several years ago, I went to a workshop where they talking about different ways in which students express their critical thinking, and one was on this idea of having a video essay idea, and I knew it would speak to my students because they are, for the most part, tech savvy in ways that are different than we are tech savvy. Sometimes I'm surprised how much more we know about technology than they do. But they really get into this assignment, and it's really interesting to see the light bulbs kind of go on, and they produce some really interesting work. So in my English 1A classes and my English 3 classes, I do 3 large projects. The second project in each of those is a larger argument based on something that we've read, a book length work. And it's the largest assignment. It's something that they can revise because of it's lengthy and it has a lot of weight in the final grade of the semester. So the final paper, because it is the end of the semester, end of 18 weeks, they are done, they're tired, they've got to study for their other finals. I make that argument a little bit briefer, and I add this video essay component to it that kind of gets them across the line a little bit. And I'll talk about how I grade it a little bit later. But so like I said, I use this as really this kind of a capstone project to come full circle at the end of the semester. The video essay accompanies their assigned paper. And since it's a writing class, that's where the weight is going to be in the writing of the paper. And the video essay, like I said, is just another way in which students who struggle with the writing, who have difficulty with censoring themselves and getting their ideas down on paper, but the wheels are turning. You have a conversation with them and they know exactly what they want to do. They are thinking at an advanced level, but the writing is really, really hindering them. So the video essay gives them that ability to express themselves in a different way and create an argument that they are really more successful in sometimes than the writing. So that's what I mean about, it addresses students' varying argument skills. I think we've all had students who can speak their papers very well, but again, have difficulty getting it onto the page. I think this video essay does measure critical thinking. I'll show you how I kind of measure that. I do use the same rubric as for the written work. It actually does transfer over into the video essay, works equally as well as for their written work. And the grading weight that I've given to this video essay at the end kind of varies. If at the end of the semester, I have some students who are really struggling and just need a little bit of push to get across that line, I'll put a little bit more weight on it and just give them a little bit of help there at the end. Sometimes how the semester goes, there's not a lot of time. They are doing this during maybe finals week. And so I don't want to make it detrimental either, because it's not a videography class. It's a writing class. And so I might place the grade for this assignment in, you know, that participation part of the grade. Of course, it wouldn't be in the heaviest weight of the class, which is the, you know, the research writing. So, and like I said, students really get invested in it. So, see if I can. Nope, can't. It's trying to advance my screen, but I can't do it. There we go. Okay, so can you see the screen? It says forms.
No, you need to reshare it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Escape. Can you see it says forms?
Yes.
Okay, I'll just make that a little bit larger. It's easier. So talk, you know, just in general about the different types of presentations that students go through that's in addition to or in place of writing assignments. And if you look at Bloom's taxonomy, the very top of Bloom's taxonomy is to create, produce new and original work. And that includes investigating, formulating, designing, assembling, constructing, and authoring. And so this is my, you know, argument for having an assignment like this, especially as like a capstone project, really culminate the end of the semester. So, you know, we have colleagues that do poster sessions, our honor students do poster sessions, and, you know, they show the understanding, the research, the proposals that go into those. I'll talk a lot to students and show them different avenues that they can take, different opportunities that are out there to include different types of images. You know, we'll look at advertising. We already have, in many cases, already looked at advertising. Of course, we talk quite a bit about social media influences. All semester long, since the writing class, we've been talking about how to create arguments. So particularly in English 3, we're looking at definition, proposal, evaluation, causal, and fact arguments, and they are writing elements of each of those throughout the semester. And then I'd really love to do something with podcasts sometime, but I haven't gotten there yet. But that'll be my next attempt, is to have students create some sort of a podcast or storytelling and record those. But the video essay, I think, is a really nice sweet spot because of those visual elements for our students. I'm a visual learner, and a lot of our students, I think, really respond to that as well. So that's why I picked the video essay. Did it switch to visual rhetoric?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can see like your whole PowerPoint.
Okay. Yeah, it's easier than going back to making a slide. So so with visual rhetoric, some of the things that we talk about, of course, the things that we talk about with written rhetoric, and that's the purpose, who the audience is, looking at the rhetorical devices of ethos, logos, pathos, and kairos. Kairos doesn't get development much, but that is that call to action. And I really like when they add those elements to their arguments. And different types of images and infographics that really add to what they are saying, their argument. And some of the structures that we talk about for the video essay are similar, of course, to the written essay, the parallelism, the repetition repetition that's positive, the repetition that is, you know, treading water that we don't want, the climatic order to telling their paper, and you know, what kind of moods and tone do they want to their video essay? How does the syntax and the diction factor into that mood? We talk about the power of silence and letting images speak for themselves, and how to pair the visuals with sound, with words, and that idea of actually practicing this. And students, you know, they do want to practice. They're putting it, you know, they feel like it's very permanent. Sometimes I think it feels more permanent than words on a page. So when they're recording themselves, they want to make it their best work, and we don't always see that with words on the page. So, so always start any kind of a writing assignment with a research question, and of course their argument. The big push in my class is entering the academic conversation and what that means to enter the academic conversation. So looking at the scholarly sources and who their audience is that they're appealing to with those rhetorical devices. What continued research would they want? Because in a very small paper and a very brief video essay that accompanies it, what would be the second chapter? What would be the next research question that would lead to? Seeing that this is just one component of a larger academic conversation that's happening. And then again, looking at the images and sounds and making sure there's a works cited for the video essay as well as their written essay that they turn in. And that might be very different because they are using images and infographics and maybe quotes or sounds that they might need to cite for that presentation. So any questions about that? Yes.
Actually, I like in terms of works cited, what's the proper way to cite like images? Is there like a formula or something that,
MLA
like where can I
format.
find?
Yeah, so everything I do is MLA format. So there are citations for images, there's citations for sound.
Where can we find that information?
I go to Purdue OWL and look those up. Yeah,
Oh,
the best. That's my go-to. But yeah. So, okay. Any other questions? Okay, let me share one more thing with you, and I can share a few clips if you would like me to. So, like I said, this accompanies their research paper. And so the first step in completing this assignment begins with this assignment. And I tell them they can just, fill in this Word document.
Eileen, can you make it bigger?
Yeah.
Thank you.
That good? Okay. So it starts out with how I would ask them to start working on a proposal for a research paper or writing a prospectus for a research paper. And that's beginning with, what is their research question? And then stating their arguable working thesis. Again, it's always a work in progress because we don't always know exactly what our argument's going to be until we start doing the research and doing the writing, and then we let it take its own form and shape, and sometimes our ideas change a little bit. So I want to make sure that they know that that's always a working thesis until they've completed their paper. So, and I reiterating what I've said all semester long, the answer to the research question usually is their argument and their thesis. And then asking what their methodology is for researching the topic. So by now they've gone through databases. They know the different sources and are the college databases, EBSCOhost, Academic Search Complete, Gale Group, all of those things. If they want to conduct surveys, they certainly can. I don't go into much detail about surveys because that's a whole other animal, but they certainly can conduct their own surveys. And I have some of my honor students who are taking honors research classes, or they know how to do this or learning how to do this. And so that's really great when they start using those tactics in another class and applying them somewhere else. And interviews. I've had a few students who go and conduct interviews with an expert in the field that they're writing about, which is really, really great. So I want them to just be thinking ahead of time, again, pushing that critical thinking of what research they need to complete, especially since this comes at the end of the semester. They've got all their other classes that are coming to a close, and they need to be as prepared as possible and well planned out as possible. And that idea of, what's the purpose of the presentation? What do you want their audience to think, feel, or do? as a result of viewing the presentations. And then I want them to think about what images, what music, what sounds that they will include in their videos to make their audience think, feel, or do something. You know, what's gonna to get that across. The free video editing program, and I'll show you, the last thing I'll show you would be a list of some different sources that I'm happy to share. You know, which free, because I really implore them to not purchase anything. And there's enough free stuff out there, you don't have to purchase anything. But which free video editing program they will plan on using. And which sound sources they'll use and which imaging sources that they'll use. I've had a lot of students where this is all new to them, so they really take from a list that I provide to them of these different free resources. Other students have done something like this before, maybe in high school, another class, and so they use iMovie. They're already familiar with it. You know, a lot are already, you know, being their own TikTok sensations or whatever. And so they're used to doing some things with video anyway. And so they're very comfortable with it. So I get the whole range of students who've never done anything like this to students who have some kind of interest in this already. And this is the resource that I share with them. And this I'll make larger. And a lot of this came from this lecture that I went to, Amanda Hill, Associate Professor at St. Mary's University. And so that was the start. And now I found some of these sources don't exist, or now they charge. Found other news sources that are better, more user-friendly. And so this is a long 4-page list of audiovisual editing formats, audio editing, and royalty-free music and photos and images. And so I'll just kind of scroll through this. And some of these might be very familiar with too, like iMovie and Windows Movie Maker. But there's some others on here for audio editing options. A lot of students like GarageBand and Audacity for the sounds, or for editing sound. For royalty-free music, I have a lot of students using Brainy Betty. So you can see there's just lots and lots of options. For the photos, a lot of them use the Unsplash and free images. Flickr is another popular one too. So I give them this, it's just kind of, you know, something to go through. Also give them videos for students who've never done anything like this. You know, I give them some how-tos on just simply using PowerPoint and creating the entire video in PowerPoint. That seems to be a really, you know, accessible way in which they can create their videos. So I have students that do everything from read their paper verbatim. You know, every slide is a paragraph of their paper with either direct quotes from that paragraph, or images that go along with the point that they're trying to make, maybe sound that's going along with the point they're trying to make. To students who it's just a representation of their paper, and they don't read one thing from their paper, they just have it as a representation of what their argument is, and really focus in on the video component of it, and just talk and talk about their argument, and don't really reference their paper at all through the whole thing. And they either one's fine. It's good. And I found that students really do like this assignment at the end of the semester. it's kind of a creative way to end the semester. They end up spending sometimes a lot more time on this, but they enjoy that time because they're creating something that's really more, well, visual. So any questions?
I have questions, but I can wait until the end.
Yeah. I can try and show a clip or two.
Eileen,
Yeah.
would it be possible for you to share your document with us?
Yeah.
The
Let me
resources?
load it in there. Close it first.
Do you provide students with any example video essays, or you just give them kind of guidelines and then you just let them create?
If I am in, I'll give you both of these. Sorry, I do these. Okay. I'll load the other one in just a second. So if I'm in a face-to-face class, I'll pull up a few videos, especially for my 1A students, because everything's a little new, and show them a few clips of previous semesters students, what they've done, just to get them a little more comfortable with what they're about to do. I can see it's nothing overwhelming. But in my online classes, and my online classes are usually the English 3 classes. I don't unless they come to my office and they want to see something. So.
Just a question. Why do you not show them a sample? Are you thinking they'll be too influenced or they won't be as creative?
Oh, in my online class?
Yeah.
They just haven't really asked for it. I think because they're in English 3, they're already a little bit more comfortable with what they're doing. So it's just one more thing to try and figure out. Also, the students' names are on them. And so I hesitate sharing their work because their names are on the video. You can't really get away from that. I mean, I guess I could splice out little clips here and there and hope that their voice isn't recognizable or something, but.
Or just get permission.
Yeah. So, let's see if I can share it. Okay, it looks like I shared it again. Okay, it should have gone up now. So let me see if I can pull up a presentation and show just a little clip. Go ahead and ask questions while I'm looking for stuff. It's
Um, I was curious now because I'm thinking of doing something a little bit different, kind of actually doing it before they write their essay. How are you letting them use any AI tools? Have you thought about that? Like, where are you on that?
I haven't thought about that yet. And I'm not teaching this semester, so yeah.
I was thinking of letting them use some tools, like really making it just a creative project. And because they've done all of this research and we started with a metacognitive more on the process. And then I wanted to do a creative project sort of like, what did you learn where it doesn't have to be written as an essay first and then go from there to the essay. So more of almost an unboxing of what they learned, what surprised them, but do it in some sort of video or PowerPoint sort of presentation, maybe even using Canva or something. But I have thought about maybe letting them use some other AI.
Yeah.
I'm curious if anyone else has thoughts on that. I don't know who all we have here and what you all teach, but
I would probably add it to that list of that first step.
Yeah.
If you're going to be using AI, what are you going to use and how, what's your purpose behind using it? I would
Right,
probably
and
add it to that step.
Right. I have let them use it, but I have done really specific things with it. Like I let them use Perplexity for research, but that was after I let them do like Google and then use the library databases, and then I let them use AI.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Right. So again, it's that whole idea of purpose, that they are really, cognizant of why they're doing what they're doing, what choices they're making, and the images, right? The research database decisions is right up there with the AI decisions. And what are you going to ask AI, and how would you use it? How would you make it your own? I think that would be added to that video list, since you asked.
yeah, no, I like that. And that's what I'm kind of giving them, like, what is the purpose of using AI and what is the purpose of doing this, and sort of giving them those, like really talking about what what is the purpose? Why are they doing this?
Mhm.
Joellen, you have your hand raised?
I've used AI to actually create the video. Once they have the script, then you can use AI to actually be creative and create the video for you. That's a little bit, I don't know if that's more interesting or not. That depends a lot more on their skills to do their project. So for those who are uncomfortable and just read what they have, that's an alternative.
What tool are you using, Joellen?
Let me see. I had a few problems with my computer, so I had to reformat it. So I may not have it directly there. But if you send me your email, I'll be glad to look it up and send it to you.
Sure, I'll just throw it in the chat.
So Salome asked, as students only submit a video essay, or did they submit a written essay? They do submit the written essay, and that will be graded. That's an argument, that's an academic paper, and so that has the largest weight in the class, that the series of academic papers that they write, since it is an English class, an argument class. And so I try to make the video essay, just to complement it, again, to give them a little A for effort at the very end of the semester, that they think, consciously about it. That video, that step one, I grade it. And if they haven't answered questions, they get marked down on it. Or if they haven't given enough thought to something, then and explained themselves thoroughly, they don't have an arguable thesis, those things by the end of the semester, of course, they'll be graded on. And so I grade that. And if they don't do it at all, of course, they don't get any points for it, but it does give them a little push at the end of the semester. And could they pass the class just on that? No, because the class is weighted on the writing always, but they do like having something different at the end, and to have a different type of work represent themselves.
I'm sorry if you already said this. What percentage of the grade is the video essay?
Oh, well, the essay itself, the written essay, is in the academic papers portion of the grade. And so it's usually about 80% of the grade. And so the video essay would, the video part is just that little bit of participation type of grade. You did it, you showed up, you were there, you were present. And so I'll give them maybe quite a bit of points at the end there to just kind of help them out a little bit at the end. So it isn't a lot. I mean, it might be 100 points, but if you do the math, 100 points of 5% of a grade isn't much. Yeah.
Joe Ellen just said she uses in video, which is something
Okay.
I was going to start looking at because
Mhm.
I'm thinking of that. Like maybe do let them use. I don't know. Like where does academia and AI and creativity, like where does it all mesh together?
Yeah.
And the project I'm doing, it'll be worth a really small percentage of their grade, but but I want to. I don't know. Anyway, all right.
Yeah.
I'll be quieting if you have your examples to share. That'd be
Oh,
great.
yeah. So I have just a couple, and because they're two little different, I won't show the whole thing. I'll just do the first 30 seconds or so. Is that working?
You've probably heard the phrase, "I'll believe it when I see it," or "I have to see it to believe it," some variation of that. While this was once used as a sarcastic response, usually to claims that seem too fabricated to be true, today, modern technology has made it so what you see shouldn't determine what you believe. Taking a scroll through any of the popular social media apps, depending on your feed, it shouldn't take long to come across someone who seems like they have it all. They're fit, have a nice house, a beautiful family, and are in a happy relationship. To your knowledge, it makes sense that the majority of people choose to display their best side on their profiles. It's like an advertisement for yourself, in a sense. The problem is when these profiles are used as a source of inspiration by others, usually under the impression that their posts are genuine. If you're one to consistently use the
How
Okay.
long was that? Like over like the whole thing?
The whole thing, she it's like 3 minutes or no, 5 minutes.
I can't remember. Did you say you had a time length on it
Yeah,
or?
I tell them 5 to 10 minutes. Yeah, and so some come in quite a bit shorter, you know, but most of them they get really involved in them and they're 10 minutes. I had one student, oh my gosh, he did a 25-minute documentary. He had a drone and it was about groundwater, and he had this drone and he interviewed farmers. It was a PBS documentary. He was a film student, so he just went to town with it. He absolutely loved it. He set a new bar for it. Let me see. There's another one that's a little different. And my theme for this semester was can money buy happiness? I mean, it was about happiness, and this student wanted to do one on can money buy happiness? Sorry. Okay.
Today I will be presenting Can Money Buy Happiness? Today my presentation is put into 4 main categories on the basic needs of fulfillment, the access to opportunities, the stress reduction and mental well-being provided, and the enhanced social connections from money that could be used to buy happiness. Now going into my first slide. Money has the ability to fulfill basic needs.
So you can see how very different they are. I mean, he was just going to read his paper, which is completely fine. And he's more comfortable doing that. And so every slide was, representative of one part of the argument, each of his paragraphs. And where you saw with the first one, she really got into the whole visual presentation with the music in the background and just went off script. Yeah. So those are the two I'm going to show. And his was 7 minutes long.
That's really great. Have you seen like videos over the years evolve a little bit, or like do you feel like students are getting a little more tech savvy, or are they, it just depends on who they are?
It depends on who they are, but I would say they are getting a little bit more. When I first did this, I was, I had never done anything like this myself. So other than, the lectures we record on, TechSmith or whatever that we'd been doing. And so I was a little apprehensive, wondering how many questions they were going to have for me and would I be able to answer them. We got through it. It was fine. But now it seems that the last time I taught this, there were fewer questions. And of course, with those online English free students, they don't come in for help with things. They're very, very independent and do just fine on their own. So.
When you went to the workshop and learned about this, did they talk about doing it in other areas besides English? So I'm curious if because I know there are some, ESL teachers, it's English, and there are other people who are doing other things. Like maybe there's other ways they can use this in their class.
No, she did talk about podcasts quite a bit too as another component. And, and I found some others, lessons that are geared mostly toward that idea of podcasts. But I think you could apply it to just about any assignment, even if you're capturing, in our CTE areas where you're really wanting to capture if they really understand a task or a process, to, as somebody I think mentioned earlier, to replicate that process, to describe it, that idea to teach it is to know it. That's part of why I like this assignment, because with writing, it just kind of becomes this automatic, response. I'm feeding the instructor what she wants to hear, and I'm synthesizing sources, and I'm citing everything correctly. But then with creating something like a video, or if we were to, have students create podcasts, they're putting a little more of their creativity out there to be seen, to be public, even though I don't always show all of the students' videos in a class. It depends on the class, depends on the timing. But when I do, it's usually during finals week, or this takes place of our final exam, is they get up and they introduce their video and we watch it.
Yeah, I like that idea that you could actually take this and use it for other, like, show me how assignments, and that it doesn't just have to be a writing class. I mean, I could see this being used in communications too, but, John left and, he does math, but I'm thinking like, how could he use something like this in, well, he does, engineering, computer science? Can't remember. Like, how could he use that? I know we have another, who's someone else said that they decision science. So Jalen, like, is there a place for something like this in your class? I'm wondering. And I don't know, Juanita and Dee, I don't know who you are and what you do.
Hi, Lori. This is Ryan. I was going to say something.
Go ahead,
And
please.
It's actually a great idea, and we used and implemented some of it. Is, for example, in a lot of the labs where we do some, say, for example, an aircraft hydraulic hose repair, right? For example, so put it together a video of a how to is actually helpful. So we actually have found out about a company that actually put it together a lot of these CTE lab, especially in aviation maintenance, of how to demonstrate the students. In a lot of cases, we may not have the resources on time, and then also giving a clear picture of how to in a classroom setting, and then letting them loose to go to the lab actually prepares them to actually do the task more effectively. And so they will have a visual, and then they'll have a kinestetical learning process at that point, where they can actually touch and do the actual work. So it actually turned out to be an effective tool.
So are they making videos, or are they watching videos, or both?
They're not making videos, they're watching the videos. So
Okay.
it's that, but here we can actually take this idea to another level where we can actually make the videos. So when I was listening to this, I had an idea where we're working on an F404 engine fan module removal. There's so many organizations that is involved in, keeping all the parts separated because it's a very complex engine. It's off of an F-18 actually. So in that engine, there's so many complex parts. Organizing and actually having a video created, it'll help the future students actually get the concept and do the planning, of their whole lab from start to finish.
Yeah, that's great. Juanita, I think you had unmuted yourself for a second. I'm not sure.
Say that again.
Oh, I thought you had unmuted yourself and maybe you had a comment.
Oh, I didn't have a comment.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
So I'll respond to your query. As a career counselor, I'm meeting with students face to face, and there's a counseling 48, which is career planning. It's a like 100% online class, and so I'd want to see the students' development of who am I, how are they selecting their major, what kind of development has gone into those decision-making processes. And you can't always verbalize that as you know, as you're saying with the written, and especially in an online class, I'd like to see the student say, this is who I am, this is why I've selected this major, this is the research I've done, can't wait to do this career. So I can see it as maybe I was thinking about two students maybe interviewing each other. The podcast thing kind of came up, maybe you were like-minded students getting together and having a conversation about their selection. But I really like the idea of letting them be creative in how they express themselves and their process of selecting a major and a career.
Yeah.
Be great.
Go ahead. I love that because you might have a class like that where maybe they're going to be doing some writing, but maybe this would be a different way of opening them up and sort of seeing. Yeah, sorry, Eileen, I totally cut you off.
Oh, no. I think I've seen students using poster boards, right, or doing collages with that kind of a project. And the video adds just another component to it because they can include sound, the music, they can include images that are themselves or representations of themselves. And it just frees them up. And then when you add a research component or, in my case, argument to it, then it opens up video graphics that they have to find, they have to vet, they have to make sure that they're actually accurate from reliable sources and scholarly. And, so it adds a lot more layers to it all.
Yeah. And when we do the face-to-face, it is a lot of who am I? It's a lot of feedback. And I'm, for fear in an online class, I'm not going to have that feedback with them. So that's where the video would really be helpful in learning their process and their expression.
That'd be a great idea.
Anyone else have a comment? Anyway, thank you so much, Eileen. I love this idea and I've been wanting to try it myself, which is why I always ask you to present it. And I'm gonna do a little bit different of a variation, but we can see how this could be applied to many different classes, not just a writing class. So I see tons of applications, and that's what this whole series is about, is how can we assess our students in other ways besides a paper, besides a test. And Eileen has done a good job of doing that with a paper, but it can also be done without a paper. So.
Right. And I don't put that much weight into the score. Because I am using it in the semester, it's not a project that they're revising throughout. If they had a chance to revise and make it stronger and better video throughout, or if I was actually a videographer instructor, that's different. But it is one way for them to express themselves that I think they've really responded well to. So.
Eileen, sorry, I have a question. I'm always interested in rubrics. Like, would you mind sharing like what your rubric looks like for the video assignment and even like your essay assignment?
Sure. It's I need to find it. So I don't know if people want to wait till I find it or not, or want me to just email it to you. It's our
Yeah, you
department,
could.
it's
Oh,
our
yeah.
department workshop rubric. So yeah.
Yeah, I think this could apply really well with ESL students because a lot of times they have a hard time verbalizing what they want to convey in their writing. But I'm always wondering like, oh, okay, how do I score this though? Like what rubric should I use? So if you have a rubric you don't mind sharing, I'd love to see it so I can get some ideas on maybe how I can tailor it to our ESL students.
Sure. And it's our I just found it. It's our department rubric that we've used we update it every now and then. So yeah. So if you want to wait for it, I can put it, I'm finding it and putting it in the chat.
Do you use the same one for the video, or do you use something different, or do you just kind of give them points if they've put effort into it?
I use the same one. When I started looking at it, I think like there might be a word change here or there from writing to visual or something like that. It really it covers it. It covers all of it, including having the citations, if they're using quotations, that they're cited correctly. And they have their works cited page, their video cited page. I don't know. So yeah, I think this is our most recent one. Laura, you can take a look at it and see too.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and post that. So anyway, well, thank you very much. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Well, if that is the case, I will let you go. And I so appreciate you, Eileen, for coming on and sharing. So great idea.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.